Hi, I'm Adrian Correa. I'm with Pulaski Technical College in North Little Rock, Arkansas, and we're going to go over in-progress monitoring and inspecting. Again, we're going to use the Weatherization Assistance Program as an example of so that we at least have some place to pull standards and regulations and policies and procedures and that sort of thing from. But we're talking about the Home Energy Performance Quality Control Inspector job. And this is going to be the portion of it where you're going out and observing what's taking place in the field. These are some of the things that we're going to go over. So hopefully by the end of this, the learning objectives, what I want you to take away from this is to be able to explain the benefits of performing an in-progress inspection, and tell me who does that. Who is it that actually performs these? We have at least three groups of people that would perform these, and then be able to verify and know how to verify that appropriate measures are being installed correctly out in the field. Be able to describe the importance of ensuring safe work practices are being observed. Why is that important? It's not only what you think. There are a few other reasons for it, although you may have thought of all of them, so I'm not going to shortchange you there. The other thing is to be able to discuss the need to ensure equipment is up to date, that it's been inspected, and that it's functioning properly. All right, so let's get going here. A monitor or inspector will go out and take a look at a job that is currently in progress, meaning we've got a contractor or a weatherization crew on the job working. The reason for this is so that we can see how they're working. We can observe what's going on with them as far as safety practices go, what their skill levels are, how quickly they go through their jobs, whether they're just buzzing from one thing to another or they seem to have a very good rhythm to what they do. You may test equipment and make suggestions, but basically you're not there to perform any work. You're not there to do a final inspection or even prepare for a final inspection. That's not the point of this. The point of this is to go out and to help show the crews what they're doing well and show them what they need to do better in order to get callbacks, to reduce callbacks, and to become more efficient and identify training needs at either an agency or a program level. Okay, so who is it that would conduct these types of things? Who's going to go out and do these? Well, our local quality control inspectors for our local agency or our local business, our local job. Now again, we're using the Weatherization Assistance Program. You might be a utility contractor, you might be working under a coupon or a rebate program, or you may be doing this for-profit for private homeowners, but the point is you're going to have a set of rules, some procedures to follow, some regulations, some funding limitations, and we're using the WAP as an example. So within that example, our local agencies would have their own QCIs that are going to go out and do this, and then the people they get their money from is the state or the tribal organization. They would then in turn get their money from the feds, in other words, the Department of Energy. So the DOE project officers, the state or tribal monitors, and then your QCI, your local agency, are all three very good candidates for going out and doing this kind of inspection. So the reasons that we do this are, this is a good chance to discuss the scope of work. If we have something that is on the scope of work that's not really well understood, or that's not necessary to do in a particular way, we can do it in a much less expensive way and still meet the requirements of the audit, then this is a good opportunity to discuss that and to finalize what the work scope really should be as opposed to what it is now. The other thing is it allows us to test and make sure that the equipment that the crews are using is effective and working properly. It also allows us to ensure that the procedures and the policies of the program are being followed. If we have a policy that there's no cussing, no foul language, that we're going to observe a very sexually neutral work site where we're gender inspecific and this kind of thing, then those types of things should be should happen out in the field. It shouldn't just be that all of that quits when the crew gets in the truck and the horseplay starts and the non-professionalism starts. A certain amount of camaraderie is necessary for a crew to function properly, but this doesn't necessarily need to be part of it. The respect that they have for each other should also lend itself back to the agency, and part of that is to enforce the rules that and the policies that the agency has for their conduct. So that's part of what we're doing, is we're being sure that what they're doing in the fields reflects well on the entire program. The other thing is that it helps to prepare the agency for visits from the higher ups, either from the state or from the feds. This is a good opportunity for the crews or contractors to get accustomed to having somebody that is judging their work, looking at it and commenting on their work on the job site besides just the crew chief. Generally, it's just the crew chief accepting or rejecting the work that the crews are doing. Here is another person who's looking at it, and they're looking at it from the acceptability of the program. Okay, so it gets them accustomed to that. That way, when the state or feds show up, they don't freak out. They don't get worried. They know what to expect. They've got a better idea of what to expect. And then the other point is that it allows the QCI to become familiar with how the crews work day in and day out in the field. What is the rhythm of their rhyme? How do they do their work out in the field? This helps the QCI to understand why a particular crew is doing really well at something or not doing as well as they possibly could, and maybe to offer some suggestions or training or a technique that's considered best practice. So spot checks ought to take a look at a couple of things. One of them is to make sure that the appropriate measures are being installed and they're being installed correctly. Okay, we don't want a crew weather stripping a door that doesn't have weather stripping called for it. This helps to reduce callbacks. It also, in addition to that, it saves time. It increases our productivity, and if we're working with contractors, it really helps to increase their profit potential because it tightens up exactly what they're supposed to do. They don't have to waste time guessing on whether or not something is good enough or not. With the QCI right there, they've got the yes or no that they're looking for as far as whether their work is acceptable or not. Does it meet standards, and is it what was called for? Can they move on to something else? Contractors are generally very profit motivated, and the more constructive criticism we can give them to help them move faster, the happier they're going to be. The other thing is that it verifies that the auditors and the installers are in sync. A lot of times you may have an auditor call something out that the installers just don't understand. They don't really, it's not clear. They may point to an area of the home that they don't, that's not documented. See this wall and fix this thing. Well, which wall and what thing? The other part of that is the installers may routinely understand that it's part of their job to do, part B when they do part A. So if the auditor says do part A, then the installers may always assume that part B is part of that, and they wind up doing something that they shouldn't be doing. Now we can get the auditors and the installers on the same page and say, hey guys, this is what's really going on. When we say do this much and no more, we really mean this much and no more. This part of it's not necessary, it wasn't authorized, and we're spending money here that we don't have to, and it's slowing us down, so let's not do that anymore. Okay. The other thing is it allows the quality control inspector to interview the client, find out how comfortable they are with the work so far and with the crews. Sometimes we get on somebody's property and we know that we're making them uncomfortable just by being there. But we may be making them uncomfortable additionally and unnecessarily with the way that we're acting or not acting. We may be being way too formal with them and putting them ill at ease. We may be not being formal enough. They're not hearing enough yes sir, yes ma'am from us, and they feel like we're disrespecting them. So sometimes having the QCI talk to the client, find out what the ins and outs of what makes them happy or what the crew is doing that they find pleasing, and bolstering that up helps to ensure client satisfaction and their happiness with the work. A lot of times just being happy with the crew means that they're going to be happy with the work. Again, let's talk about finalizing the work scope. This is a good opportunity to talk about and make sure that scope of work really identifies what we need to do. Sometimes we'll have a difficult situation. The auditor may have called for a lot of material and a lot of repairs in order to dense pack a wall that can't be done from the outside because of the siding material or access, so it has to be done from the inside. However, once the crew chief looked at it, he realized, guess what? We've got a 12 and 12 or a 12 and 16 pitch roof. We've got plenty of room at the eaves to either drill the top plates and dense pack these walls, or guess what? They're balloon framed. We don't even need to drill. We can dense pack these no problem. Which means that we don't have to go in and mess up the interior of a home. We can save a lot of money by doing all this work from the attic as opposed to going inside. The other part of all this is that it helps to identify opportunities that the auditor may have missed. Auditors go in, and while they have their routine and their checklist, they're trying to catch everything in one look, just about. They've got 2 to 4 hours to take a look at a house and come up with the best plan that they can. And sometimes things change during from the time that they audit the house to the time we get out there to weatherize it. There may be an exterior door that the auditor completely missed because it was covered by shrubbery or inaccessible, or had rubble piled up against it, or furniture from the inside. They just didn't see it as an exterior door. It didn't register with them, so that may be an opportunity to do something. For program policies and procedures, monitors or inspectors can verify that installers are planning to put in weatherization measures that are only recommended by the audit or the priority list. Now, some of you are going to, especially if you're working sometimes under a coupon program or rather a rebate program, you're going to be working in an A, B, C type fashion. Some states and programs work under a priority list. We always do this before we do this, and we do these things in this order. So if you're working under that, sometimes there's reason to deviate from it, or there's good reason not to deviate from it. Most of the time you're not going to deviate from it, and that's when the monitor or inspector can be sure that the crews are not doing something that they're not authorized to do, especially if they do that routinely. They can catch that and recommend some training to tighten the crew up and educate them as to why they don't want to do that, what kinds of problems it might cause. And then also check to make sure that health and safety protocols are being followed. Are we testing for ambient CO? Are we doing CAS tests when we leave? Are we doing everything we need to be doing, I guess is the question. And then also verify that the installers have the right stuff with them. Do they have the right door? Do they have enough material? Did they bring enough sheetrock? Do they have enough caulk? Do they have field guides? Do they have a list of best practices? Do they even know what the priority list is? These types of things. Did they bring the work order with them? You'd be surprised at what kind of silliness happens in the heat of the morning trying to get out the door and get a cup of coffee, get the truck loaded and get to a job. Sometimes you just have a bad morning and you wind up on the job not nearly as prepared as you'd like to be, and sometimes you need to get reminded of it so that you quit having those bad days. The other thing is to take a look at whether or not those measures are performed and installed correctly. Not only are you doing what's on the audit, but are you doing it properly? And here is a really grand chance for a monitor or an inspector to check and see how thorough a contractor or a crew is, how quickly they can move through the work realistically. Okay, not just set a speed record, but realistically, day in and day out, how quickly they can move through the work, and then also how consistent they are across the projects, all of the projects that they may be working on. They may be really good at something and really bad at something else. And then I guess this is probably my favorite part. Nobody knows how to do anything until they're trained or they teach themselves. And a lot of times we assume that what is common sense is known by everybody. But let's face it, common sense is only common when everybody's in on the joke, okay? If you don't understand, you just don't understand. And there's nothing wrong with not understanding. It just means that nobody's explained it to you. And that means that you haven't been taught what the meaning of it is. So if we don't train our crews and refresh that training, then we cannot expect them to perform. So this is a good best chance for a quality control inspector or a monitor, especially a monitor, to identify what kinds of quality control issues are taking place in the field, what kind of problems are we having. If they are seeing agency-wide or territory-wide an inconsistency, then they can go back and say, okay, we need training on how to do this or to do that. And this can be maybe for all the installers, or maybe it's an auditor issue, or maybe if it's even a QCI issue. The other thing that they can do is recommend that the agency adopt this best practice that currently is the best way, or the agreed upon best way to do things. Maybe they're just a little reluctant to do it because they haven't seen it done. Maybe all they need to do is go over and visit with another agency for half a day and watch them do it, and everybody that was reluctant goes, oh yeah, that's nothing, we can do that, that's great, we need to be doing that. The other thing is to switch to a more appropriate material. Duct mastic is a very good example of that. It tends to do a much better job for a much longer time than even butyl tape. Butyl tape, you have to have an extremely clean surface to apply it to that is dry and stays dry. Otherwise, it can start failing, whereas the mastic seems to get on there and really hold under less ideal conditions. So maybe duct mastic and fiber mesh tape or fiberglass tape are a better idea than butyl-backed aluminum tape. The other thing is they can look to see if crews are performing specific diagnostic tests. If they are not running a blower door and using smoke to diagnose air leakage sites, if they're not running their blower door up to, let's say, 50 Pascal before they run a pressure pan test to test how well they've done on duct sealing, then a monitor or inspector can catch this and recommend that either they be retrained or be tightened up on that. By noticing what's going on, both right and wrong, a good monitor can recommend some very targeted trainings to correct just the issues that they're seeing, just the issues. Equipment testing. Monitors and inspectors may also take a look and test while they're on site, although it's not required. They may also look at the equipment, like insulation, blowing machine. Are the pressures set properly in order to dense pack? Do we have leaks in the hoses? Are the hoses ready to explode from old age and duct tape? How about blockage points? Are we restricting and jumping down in size way too fast? You know, it's considered a much better practice to make gradual reductions in your hose as opposed to very dramatic reductions, because that helps prevent blockage. And then combustion safety equipment. Are the combustion analyzers being calibrated properly? Are they calibrated properly? Do they have fresh sensors in them, or are the sensors 2 years overdue for replacement? Blower door equipment, is it in good shape? Is the fan all bent up and cracked? Do they have the number of rings to be able to test the house properly? Do they have hoses? Are they in good shape? Are they, 40-year-old hoses that should have been thrown away 30 years ago? Do they have a good digital manometer? So those are the types of things they can take a look at. Now, something else, and don't get lost here in what I'm about to tell you, because I'm going to take a right turn on you, is we have a fiber blowing machine here where the agency has put not only an inventory control number, but they've also put a sticker on there for an inspection and the date of that inspection. And a lot of monitors or inspectors would go, oh, that's good. That's a good thing. But my quality control inspector eyeballs went to 3 things in this picture almost immediately to tell me, or actually now I've seen 4, that, hey, we might have a problem. So number 1 is right here. Why have we got a piece of wood holding this up? Okay. Is this equipment defective, and does it need to be repaired? Number 2 is, where is this man's, where are his safety glasses? Why is he not wearing them? OSHA defines construction activities as your key or your trigger to need safety glasses. So installing insulation or running an insulation machine for installation of insulation, say that 10 times fast. Is a requirement, is a key, a trigger for safety glasses. He doesn't have them on. What about this connector? This seems to be an aftermarket electrical connector. Does it meet the UL listings for the cord that it's attached to and the circuit that it's on? And this certainly is not a UL approved, which it must be according to OSHA regs, a UL approved repair to this extension cord. So we've got 3 things here that OSHA can pop us on, and one of them that I'm concerned about, we've got a piece of equipment that looks like it's being maintained and treated well, yet I'm seeing things here that tell me no, it's not. Okay, we're kind of doing just half a job here and keeping up with this equipment maybe the way we should, and these are the details that are going to stop a crew from working. Okay, health and safety. If we're doing lead safe work, do we have a certified renovator on the site? Are the installers trained, and do they carry the proper safety equipment to do the job? I'm seeing right here, first of all, this gentleman is going to have to throw this hat away at the end of the day if they're doing lead safe work, because that hat is his head covering that is required by our requirements and or by our regulations, and it's going to have to be disposed of at the end of the day. So it's going to have to be thrown away in a plastic bag, goosenecked, and taken away. The other thing that I'm seeing is he does not have any skin protection on that hand. Okay, no gloves. While the installer, the actual person running the hose, does. In fact, they're wearing a respirator. This person has some respiratory protection, but I'm questioning whether or not he's properly trained or even qualified to be assisting in this procedure. Okay. The other thing is the equipment working right? Again, we come right back to, is the equipment working right? So as far as what should be on the truck in order to protect both the workers and the site, let's talk about that. We should find things like Tyvek suits, a variety of gloves, respirators, booties. The crew should probably have steel-toed boots. However, for the job site, they're probably going to need some different things like polytarps and wet spray applicator, hazard tape and signage, accurate MSDSs, that's required by federal regulation, again an OSHA regulation, as well as a first aid kit. So these are some of the things that we should be looking for to determine whether or not our crews are doing a good job out in the field. Because if they get inspected by OSHA, then it's not only it's the agency that or the company that gets written up, not necessarily the worker. Okay, so as far as EPA regulations are concerned, monitors can make sure that everybody, the auditors, the other monitors, crew members, and contractors all have attained, if they're required to, EPA certified renovator status. Okay, if they're overseeing a job, then they need to be. They not only need to be have somebody who's got that renovator status, but they have to be assigned to a particular job. And then in addition to that, they also have to be associated with a qualified firm. So the lead safe regulations are not simple, and we need to make sure that we're complying with all of them, because the cost of noncompliance is very expensive. Okay. The number of in-process inspections, oh boy, that's a good question. How many should you do? You should do enough to ensure you're doing a good job. So how do you do that? Well, you start off with a set number, just an arbitrary number that you think is going to work. And then you increase that, the frequency for technical inspections as you see the need. And once you are giving feedback to your crews, then you want to continue to do spot checks, just looking for particular items, all right? And hold regular meetings with the field staff. This is one of my big pet peeves, is everybody gets together and talks about what a bad job the installers are doing, or the folks in the field are doing, except they forget to tell the folks in the field, okay? And one of the reasons that the folks in the field do a bad job is because they don't understand what they're doing right. I mean, they think they're doing it okay, and but their confidence can easily be shaken with criticism. So it's much better to approach them from a positive standpoint. You know, in other words, you go to somebody and say, hey, you know, your crew is doing a really good job with A, B, or C. Don't change a thing. All right. With D, you're doing a fair job, and it can be a lot better if we address this. Okay. So a crew leader or a crew is going to go, hey, we're doing a good job. All right. We like that. How can we do it better again? You know, tell us. This is music to our ears. We really like to hear this. That's what crews like to hear. You're doing good work. And they also like to hear you can do better work and then give them a solution. Don't just tell them this sucks, do it over again. That doesn't tell them anything. Tell them why you're not going to accept the work. Okay, is it satisfactory or not? So holding regular meetings with field staff, really important. Now, all of that can go in one ear and out the other very quickly if you don't educate yourself as to what they're really doing in the field. If you're not qualified to supervise or to inspect, rather, the work that's being done in the field, you are going to lose the respect of that field crew very quickly. If you don't understand what they're doing, if you're trying to judge what they're doing by a set of criteria that doesn't belong with the job, even if it's, in the SWSs, if it's not part of the job that they're doing and you're trying to make it fit, you're going to lose all respect and they're going to turn a deaf ear to you. So you need to be sure that when you're telling them that they have to, A, B, or C, that A, B, and C are really part of the job they're doing. If not, you're just poking the bear, okay? You're making them mad. So in summary, start off with a minimum number of in-process inspections, okay? How many, a percentage, so many a week, whatever. And then hold regularly scheduled meetings with the field staff. This gives them feedback that they so desperately need. They need to hear when they're doing well, and they need to hear what they can do better, and they need to hear it in a positive light. Okay, be positive with this. A monitor and inspector should educate themselves as to the gross process that takes place out in the field, the overall process of doing particular jobs, and then what that job looks like when it's done and done correctly. Otherwise, they're not qualified to judge whether it's done correctly or not. Okay, that's why not everybody's a QCI. You've got to have a lot of experience or the ability to get a lot of experience in a short period of time to be able to do this, because it's a complicated job. The other part of it is you've got to make sure that the equipment that's being used is functional and up to date. Make sure that the program policies and procedures that you're working under, whatever program that is, are being followed. And that's very important, because that can mean dollars or it can mean injuries. Okay, so it's important to enforce those, even though you don't want to be the bad person. You're not really being the bad person. You're being the good person in the long run, but it just doesn't feel that way when you're telling a crew leader, hey, your guys are doing this. They need to not be doing that. They need to be doing this instead. Nobody likes to tell a crew leader that, but that's what it takes. You've got to be able to point out what's not right and how to make it right. And then you should reduce callbacks by identifying training needs. Show folks what they can do better, how they can do it faster, how they can do it more efficiently and more accurately, and you're going to be their hero. Every time you go out there, they're going to be going, yes, here comes that person who always tells us how to do this faster and get off this job sooner, so we can, move on to the next one. We are whipping these things out and we love it. Crews like to move efficiently. They really do. They really appreciate it. Staying busy all day is why a lot of these folks work out in the field. They hate sitting behind a desk and messing with paperwork. They would rather tinker with something all day long than sit down and have to write a paragraph or a sentence for work or fill out a form. That's not their cup of tea. They don't like it. And if you can help them do their job and be more satisfied with their job, they're going to like you a lot more, they're going to like their job a lot more, and it's going to show in their work. I appreciate you going through all of this section. It's a pretty short section, but there's a lot to say about it. I tried to keep it interesting, I hope. It was. We'll see you in the next section.